How we doing, everybody? Anyways, today we're gonna get into reg creep and slow shot issues. And we're gonna diagnose exactly what causes the first few shots to be slower than the others. We're also gonna go over regulators, how they operate, how they work, Belleville washes, thicknesses, the stacks, and what they do. Two different first and second generation Plenums, new style with the single O-ring, and the O-rings. Alright? So if you get a little time, go grab a coffee, beer, whatever, and we'll be right back. How we doing, guys and girls? We're back. And we're going to get into this subject about this cold shot issue that some are having. I guess it was a problem for a long time. But let's get into it anyways. And it's controlled basically by two major things. One is the regulator, and two is in the plenum the valve rod O-rings sticking when they're cold. The original O-rings, like these ain't bad. These are pure 90s. As you can see, they're like a whitish, cloudy color. These work good for like 500 to 1,000 shots before they start acting up, and then you get that gummy, black gummy on the rod. But anyways, I'm gonna get into the regulators, and what I've found is, like my first regulator, when I first got the gun, the thing was awesome. It lasted me, I think it was like 10, 12,000 shots. Awesome, totally awesome. Shortly after when that died, that's when all hell broke loose, and we chased it for a little bit, and then we finally got into it and started looking about how the regular actually operates and how it works. So for the guys who know, they know. For the guys who don't know, I'm just going to point this out. So anyways, we got high pressure air, right? It comes in through this hole on the side here. You know what? I'm going to zoom in a little bit if I can. Alright. So this little side hole right here, when you fill the bottle, this is where it comes in. Alright. So after it comes in there, now this thing will focus. See that little tiny hole right there? Now, air comes in there. Sorry for the film. Air comes in this hole, and it comes out this way. Out of this tiny little pinhole. Yeah, this one I polished. Then it goes from there over to here. And if you look, you'll see this little hole here, and then there's another one right there on the other side. When the piston lifts up, air comes out the middle, escapes down those two, and then comes out the bottom, and then fills your regulator, right? Right. Okay. Now we got 3 O-rings inside here. We got 2 on the piston, and we got 1 inside the body here, right there. If you can see it, right? So that seals these 2. It keeps, actually, go this way. These 2 keep this separated. Now if this one leaks, it goes down, comes out the barrel. This one ends up coming past the screw. Okay? So what I've found is how these work is when there's no air pressure, the piston wants to open this way. Okay? It's always, the spring is always holding the piston open. When you put air in it, that's when this closes. Okay? Now, when it closes, that's when those two surfaces right here, these two have to be flawless. No hairline imperfections, no scratches, no nothing. Just like this. These ones I polished. Sorry about the camera. It just doesn't want to focus for me today. But let me see if I can. Yeah, you can see this. See that? I'm doing. And then over here, it's like a mirror finish. So what I do to do that is I use these three. This is jewel 3M. It's jewelry polishing paper. 4,000 grit, 6,000 grit, 8,000 grit. Okay, and we'll talk about, I got some pictures I'll put up later in the video about that. So moving on. So what happens with the slow shot or reg creep? So what is reg creep? There's a lot of you guys know. There's some guys that don't know. There's some guys that might have a theory about it. But anyways, regulator creep, okay, is when air gets past this piston right here and fills the plenum. Now you say, well, why does, if it's up to 150, say if you set it at 150, now it crept up to 158, and you say, well, it's at 158, it should shoot faster, right? No. You know Peter in the Viking air gunner, how he tells you for a band-aid to correct it, or for a band-aid, whatever you want to call it. But if you don't want to be too far off on your first few shots when it's cold, to turn the power wheel up. And you know what that does? Think about it. Now, your plenum went up to from 150 to 158, all right? You have your hammer tuned for 150. So when you take that cold shot, guess what? You ain't got enough hammer spring. So it's going to come up and hit the valve, but it ain't going to open it enough. Now it's going to be slower. Why? Because there's more pressure behind the valve and less hammer spring. That's why you get a slow shot. So then the second thing, and you'll get 2 or 3 of them until the plenum balances out. Once it balances out, it's back on par. No problem, right? Well, not really. Because they have basically a set of Belleville washers there, which are basically springs, right? 10, 11, 12, 11. And they stack them all so much, and they're different thicknesses. Well, what I found out over time, I'm no genius at this. I'm fairly new to this too. I'm like 4 years into it, roughly. I've got 4 impacts, and I got 1 leopard. My background is drag racing, 4-wheelers, ATVs, engines, all that stuff, building motors. Anyways, back to the regulators. So the washer stack is very critical. You know, they sell you the regulator. It comes with the washer stack, right? You put it together, yep, and then it takes 5-10 seconds to recoup after you take a shot for the plunge. That's because those washers, these ain't set for your reg pressure. They're a rough, they'll do good. The gun out of the box is great for like 70% of the people. The guys who shoot bench rest and, professional, they're looking for every little thing, so everything counts, and it does, when you're looking for everything. Me, I'm finicky, so I like my gun similar to that, and I'm going bench rest shooting for 26, so I'm going to be building a Panther. I have a M4, 30 cal, 700 millimeter I'm building. But anyways, so the trick behind this is to match the Bellevilles for your pressure, because if you do, or if you don't, what happens is, if you have this for a set pressure, say 130, right? But the springs are good for up to say it's gone 110, 100. It's going to be lazy, okay? It's going to be slow. And that's why it takes time. Now you put more tension, you put thicker Bellevilles. Now you got more, it's like a shock. This is basically, if you think of a shock absorber with a spring on a car, that's basically what you're tuning, but there's no hydraulic fluid here. You want this piston to react. When you take that shot, you want this piston to open and close as quick as possible. But you also want it to flow the air to have enough time to fill the reservoir, which is basically the plenum. And if you can do that, you'll be really consistent with the gun. The other thing is the valve rod O-rings. Like I showed you, these are the pure 90s, okay? These are mine. Totally different. Okay, mine are just about transparent. You can almost see through them. Okay, there's no silicone in these. What happens on the valve rod is when they're cold, just like a windshield wiper, when they're cold, you turn them on without putting any fluid on, what happens? They chatter. Same thing's going on with the valve rod until it warms up, and then the silicone becomes slippery, and then it's right on tune. Well, with these, it doesn't do that. Whoops, sorry. Fumble. With these, it doesn't do that. There's no silicone in these O-rings. And they're also not normally shaped. We already took that in consideration. The guy, oh, well, you know. Nope. These don't pinch when they're under pressure. Okay? And in the 2 Plenum, they don't get squished like you think they do. Okay. Now, let's see. So, let me just go over. I'm going to pull this camera off. It's going to wiggle a little bit. So, this is the original stack that came in my M4. 60, 59, 50, 48, 49. That's what was in there. And that's how it was stacked. Okay? That was another stack I tried. And then I tried that one. And then this one, like the DRS Pro. And then this one. But the ones I found to work were this right here, up to like 140 bar. It's instant recovery. And now the one I use is this right here with 60s and 58s. I think there's 145 and a couple 48s in. But I even found even a better one because I run my reg 150 roughly. And this worked great. But now I run 58s and 60s only. And it acts like a stiff shock, but the piston recovers instantly, and the timing is beautiful as far as the shots go. Now, rebuilding the regulator, you got to be really careful with this piston, because any of these surfaces get just a hairline scratch in them, and you don't see it, you can't polish it out. Sorry for the cameras, guys. It's horrible. I'm using a cell phone. I'm waiting for my other camera. It broke. Anyways, these surfaces, they have to be not one scratch on them. If they do, it's gonna leak, because an O-ring sits on that to seal it. Inside this body, the same thing. Now, you see, some people talk about casting on this. Now, all you need to do is use a torch tip cleaner just on the very end. Don't use a drill and drill in there, because what you're going to do is you're going to make swirl marks. That's going to cause turbulence. You're going to put it together and it's going to act up. Just like I had this O-ring act up on me, pulling my hair out, right? Why? Because this was leaking, coming here, past this, which it comes out the vent on the side of the gun, right? Right there. That little weep hole. So when it did, what happened was as the bottle pressure went down, the gun was picking up feet per second. When the bottle was high, it would drop feet per second. You'd add more hammer. Oh my God. It would pick up, and then all of a sudden, it would just, as it went down, you could hear it, and it was a nightmare. And then come to find out, it was the main body, which is the pain in the butt that's inside the gun. You know, the one's downside, the one that seals this to the, well, what happens is it puts pressure on the piston, doesn't let it fully open to fill the chamber when it's under high pressure. As the bottle pressure came down, it allowed it to open. I'm like, it took me probably a week to chase that down. Like I said, do not, well, it's up to you. You can run a drill bit in here. I wouldn't do it. As far as these, if you look at these ones here, I just cleaned them up with a bevel tool. That's all I did, just the outside edges, just because you'll get a little chip or something of brass, you know. Okay, enough about the amp regulator. I'm going to move on to the Huma. Now this body has 3 O-rings in here, totally different piston. And what a lot of people don't know, and myself, I goofed myself, because they say to flip the piston, that little white disc over. But what you don't know, take a look at this. Ta-da! If it'll focus, it's got a nipple on it. See that little nipple? Well, that digs into that disc and makes a seat. And then in the instructions, it'll tell you to flip it over or replace it. Well, if you flip it over, now you got a little rib, so you're putting it on a flat surface over here. Right? So now it's going to pick it up and it's going to leak. And that's what was happening to me. So this little disc, you know, I didn't know. I didn't take the screw out. If you can see that. See that little dent? Well, that's what that nipple does. So when you flip it over, now it's got a ridge on it, like a brim, so it ain't going to sit flat. So it's going to leak. I'm telling you. The things. And the other thing is, as I run the Huma high pressure, this one here, I have another spare. This is the one for the impact, 1155. And Huma, their regulators, doesn't say on this, does it? No, it just tells you what it fits and what size, but it doesn't say, like on this package here, is it this one? Is one of them, oh, right here, the spring set tells you what size they are. And if you look, they use all 60s. I wonder why, for a high pressure rig, because it recovers quick. Now, see, the Huma air piston is different because it has a disc on the top, right? And then it has this piston, this screw, the adjustment screw, with that little nipple on there with the disc in between. And that's how that operates. But if you look at this end, totally different from, let me grab it. Totally different from the FX. The size difference. But also, that all has to do with this hole here in the design, plus the wafer that it has to sneak by. So that's all calibrated. All right. The other thing is if you can have the smoothest hammer and valve rod assembly that you want, it isn't, if the regulator isn't working like it's supposed to, it doesn't matter how smooth you make it, that can be smooth as silk. You take it apart, you say, geez, there's nothing wrong. It works great. It's all nice and polished. Guys, another thing, when you put the hammer in, don't put a lot of grease on it, because what happens is the hammer, just picture this as the chrome shell, the hammer itself, and then this being the hammer weight. If you put grease on it, it goes in, it'll stick to the end, and you'll get an inconsistent shot count. Another thing is the outside edge of the hammer, where it goes, the hammer weight, as you call it, where it goes into the hammer itself. The outside, let me just, if this was the hammer, the outside where the spring sits, this is so tight, I've had this stick inside the shell. I don't know if you've ever turned up the power wheel and it didn't do nothing. And it's like, what? That's because the hammer stuck in the shell. Inside that hammer, it's got machine marks. All that's going to be polished and taken out nice. It needs clearance. This valve rod needs to be polished really nice. Polishing this end with the threads, this isn't going to do nothing for you. That's not where the slow shot is. There's no O-ring here to stick like a windshield wiper. It's right here. This is where it happens. Okay, that's why when you pull them apart from brand new, it's all that black gooky. That's from the original O-ring with the silicone mixing in with that grease, and it makes a mess and it sticks. The new valve rod, which has the peak bushing here, is really nice. But for my M3, I had to do a little bit of work because it's a little bit bigger. The M4, because it's made for the M4, and the seat's a little bit bigger, so I had to do a little bit of work to taper it to bring for my M3. But it does work, and I had to take some material off of this end because these come long. The new ones, when I put that gun together, this one here, that's my 25. That one, it was at 6.5. And I usually run them about 580, 560 to 580 in there because I went through that before. But the shorter you make it, it tightens up the how do you say, the ES, as they say. I don't know. All that, it makes it really consistent. It takes a little bit away from the feet per second, but the gun becomes really consistent. Like that gun right there is probably in a 20 shot count, 3 to 4 feet per second out of 20 shots all day long now. And if I was to push, that's been sitting for about a week roughly, and the reg is at 150, and it probably crept about 2 bars, same as the Leopard. The Leopard, I put a Huma air regulator in that, the one for the impact, and I used except all the 60s, I went 59, 60. I taped the Bellevilles because I have a bunch of them here, as you can see. 38s, 40s, 50s, 60s, let me see. 53, 63, no, here we go. 62, 59, 53, 51, and then we got, 54, and 38s, 49s, 53s, 51s. So, the other thing I want to go over is the piston. When you pull like this one, this is the reason I'm making this video. I just had to get 3 of these impacts, and local guys come down. The one guy was squirting WD-40 in the fill, and it was all lucky the gun didn't explode, yeah, it was all through it. It looked like milk, and it was a mess inside. It was a 10-hour job, but he's happy, the gun's happy, I'm happy. It was acting up a little bit, but I put my O-rings in it. a new fresh set because the WD-40 attacked them for whatever reason. And that's just a no-no. That's why I say only use that super lube grease, because it doesn't have anything that's going to attack the O-ring. Anyways, when you do these spring washes, what I like to do is I'll start with 4,000 and then go 6,000 and then go 8,000. And what I do is I'm going to pull one out of the package here. And the other thing, guys, you got to measure them. Don't just take it for granted that that's what's coming in the package, because it's not true all the time. There is, and then there's not. I've been through this quite a bit myself. Anyways, you got to measure it right on the edge. Don't go halfway to the middle, because it's bowed. It won't measure right. It'll measure thicker than what it is. It's 36s. Okay. So on this edge, they're really sharp. Okay. On this outer edge, this inner edge, and on the top there, and on the outside edge, you see that silverish color? That's because it's a high spot, and what they do is they rub and they chatter. So what I do is I'll put them on here, just lightly with your finger. Doesn't take much. Flip it over. Take a peek. See what it looks like. You'll see that. Yep. See it? That's all you want to do, is just polish that, just very lightly. You want it to be smooth. You don't want it to have the sharp edges like they have. That's really, really smooth now. So when it collapses, you don't want the sharp edges to bite in on the side here as it collapses and retracts. And that's what makes a real smooth regulator. So what I do is, like I said, I go with 4, 6, and 8, and same with the regulator piston. I'll just do I'm going to post up some pictures at the end of the video. Okay, we got them all mixed up here. No, yep. This piston here came out of a customer's gun. I'm just going to set these over here. I really don't care. So, let's take a peek, because this thing had like 10 bars of creep. And I'm hoping I can you guys can see that. Probably not, because my lighting really stinks in here. This camera just won't pick up on it. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But it's all scuffed pretty bad. I can show you, like I said, I'm going to post some pictures. But yeah, enough of that. So what I do is just hold it like this. And what you want to do is go around in small circles like this. Real easy. And you can feel it because it glides on the Delrin. You don't hear any scratching. And also like this. I do a figure 8. You don't have to go super fast or nothing. You know, just nice and easy. And what it'll do is it'll start to take that dent out of the middle. It'll start to make it flat. And by going round like this, it'll kind of shape it conical a little bit, because the piston is also pointed. And then it'll make a really nice mating surface. That's why when you push, let me see. Yeah, it's starting to polish, clean up. It's hard for you guys to see it. I can see it because I got my glasses on. I don't know if you guys can see that. But anyways, that's what I do. I go with the 4,000, 6, and then 8. Polish up really nicely. Also, I use a micrometer, stare it, and I measure the piston. Because here's another thing. If you have an older regulator, what happens is, up here, like if you look at this one, you'll see that little ridge right where my thumbnail is. Let me get a pointer. My video really stinks here. My other camera broke, so I gotta use my cell phone. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, but anyways, right up here, from here to here, from here to here, there'll be a ridge. And I don't know if you can start, yeah, see the shadow of it? What happens is, it builds that ridge from chattering inside. And then it wears inside the bore here as well. So unless it's a fairly new regulator, if it's an older regulator, 6008, just replace the whole thing as one unit and start from new. But even when I start from new, I clean inside here because sometimes there's some casting in there. I just clean up these holes, no drill bit, no nothing goes in those holes because you don't want to make turbulence. Okay? And then same with this, you know, check that screw, the adjustment screw on the sides, make sure there's nothing wrong, no scratches, no nothing. Check the piston, make sure it's nicely polished, no scratches, nothing on it. You know, you want it to be nice and shiny, you know, crystal clear. This camera isn't working so hot, so I can't really show you 100%, but I will post the pictures where the other camera took them. Okay. So basically, as long as you have the right stack on the regulator, right, you want to take some shots and you want to make sure that it's refreshing, continuous. Now, the only way to do that, to get it to quicken, is it... Oh, here's the other thing I wanted to show you. Did you know, before I skip off to the other, this is the new Plenum. There's a first and there's a second gen. There's two different designs, and I'm going to show you something right now. Now, what they did is they drilled a 1.5 millimeter hole in here, like I did on my original Plenum that I made to quicken the refresh. What you're going to see here is, see this Plenum here? See how deep down the O-ring is? Or is not? I gotta get a flashlight so you guys can see. Hold on. Sorry for this video. Yeah, I was just trying to get it done, and a lot of stuff's been going on, so. Okay, where are we? Right here. Okay, see this right here? That O-ring is just below the surface. Right there. See it? It's like 20 thousandths. Second gen, take a look at that. Holy Christ, where is it? Yeah. That's because it's down right down there, about 60 thousandths. See the difference in the thickness? So I don't use neither one of these. If any of you guys want one, send me an email and you're more than welcome, because I ain't gonna use them. Anyways, I'm trying to show you how deep down this is. Actually, it's so deep down I can barely even see it on this camera. Plus this camera kind of stinks. Well, it does. Period. I wish this would focus. Anyways, that O-ring, there you go. See how deep it is down there? No more 20 thousandths. It's way down. You know, it's like 60 thousandths from the top. The other thing is, this is real thin on the first one right here. I don't know, they worked, but that small O-ring, it just I couldn't get it to be as consistent as I did with the first gen with the O-rings I made versus these O-rings I made, which are basically, I made them for the Leopard, and then they come out with this using the same O-ring. So I don't know, potato. You know, trying to keep up with all this stuff is like something else. Anyways, I just wanted to share this with you guys. And if any of you guys have any questions, trying to think what else. Oh yeah, hammer weights, guys. Remember, the hammer weights, it's, you gotta add the weight of the spring too, because that adds to the weight. Different springs weigh different amounts. Remember that. And then trying to think of what else. So basically, the initial slow shots, you're gonna have to check for the creep. If you got creep, you gotta check these O-rings. You gotta check the surface. You know, this mating surface has to be scratch free. This other side has to be scratch free. If there's any scratches in it, it isn't going to hold. Same with this disc for the guys who have the Huma Air. Don't flip it over, because you'll instantly gain yourself a headache like I did. And that was my mistake for not looking at the screw. That's what happens for assuming instead of looking. So I assume no more, because I made an ass out of me and you. How's that? Okay. Trying to think of anything else I can cover here. But I think that's the basics. So basically, that slow shot, the regulator, any type of creep, when it does have creep, it builds up the extra amount of pressure in the plenum. So therefore, you don't have enough hammer. So therefore, it won't open the valve as much until the plenum drops down. Then when it drops down, you're back on track. And the only way to correct that is the regulator. Once you get the regulator straightened out, then move on to the valve rod. If that's sticking, change the O-rings. Don't use that Molly grease. I use Super Lube. It's been the best I've used so far. Make, you know, any inside the springs all have to be sanded smooth. You don't want any burrs. Same with inside the hammer weight. The valve rod polished smooth, really smooth. All the machine marks have to come out of it. Yeah, it takes hours, guys, to do all this. It's not just a couple hours and it's done, you know. Same with the C1 height. You got to see what every gun is different, so every gun's going to want something different. Nothing is identical because we don't live inside of a vacuum, you know. It's just the way it is. If any of you guys want to try any of these stacks right here, you're more than welcome with the springs. This works good from 100 to 140. And this one here works from like 140 to 160. But then I did the same stack with 59s and 60s. And that's where I'm at right now with this gun. And it's working beautiful. And it's been sitting for a week. And this one's been sitting for a couple weeks. This one's set at 143 bar. And I bet if I press the reg, it's probably going to make me a liar, but it should be like no more than 145. Can you see that? 145. This one over here should be no more than 152. I'm going to turn the gauge on. And then we're going to grab it. We're going to stand her up and take a peek. Where is she? There she is. 152. This gun's been at rest for a week. And we're at 200 bar. That's one thing I wanted to tell you guys. Sorry about bobbling around. Is what I found is if you go beyond 80, say your bottle pressure's at 250, and your reg's at 100 bar. You're at 150 bar between. What I've found is to keep the gun, for the guys, keep it between 80 and 100 bar. Between your bottle pressure and your regulator pressure, and your regulator will be a lot happier camper. Because regulators don't have that wide of a spread. They can't be consistent. That's why you'll see different high pressure regs and low pressure regs. They're made to operate within a certain range. So that is another thing I want to tell you. You put a high pressure reg and run low bar, it's going to be all over the place. It's never going to be consistent. You have to match the reg to what you're doing. But like I said, I've learned to run 80 with an 80 to 100 bar of my bottle pressure. Any more, any less, the reg acts up. You can buzz the reg piston, and that's where it all starts. And also, guys, that's why they say when you adjust the regulator, not to adjust it down. That's because when you do, you're turning the screw in, and it's grinding these two together. So it's binding together because this has got all the pressure behind it, and you're trying to force it against, what, 300 bar, 250 bar pressure? So that's why it digs in and makes that damage to the tip of the regulator. All right, guys. Well, I'm sure I missed a bunch of things. I got a bunch of things on my mind. I just tried to get this out for the guys who've been emailing me and sending me messages. And until the next time, take care. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to subscribe, go ahead. If you don't. And we'll see you soon. Merry Christmas.